Welcome to Proverbs 31 Creatives. My name is Brianna Coleman. I'm so excited for this new chapter in my walk with the Lord. My goal with this podcast is to encourage other women to grow their creativity, entrepreneurship, finances, life, health, and most importantly, grow closer to Jesus. I'll be having conversations with guests with anointed women in faith and learning right along with you. Are you ready to start your journey to become the creative Proverbs 31 woman you've always wanted to be? All right, let's go. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Proverbs 31 Creatives. I'm your host, Brianna Coleman. I hope you guys really enjoyed the first episode. I was really wanting to do an introduction so we can kind of get to know each other before we really move forward. So that also is going to play into today's episode. Today I'm actually going to be sharing my full testimony and what the Lord has done in my life. I feel like this is about to be the most real and raw I have ever been on the internet, so please pray for me and I'll pray for you. When I first looked back at my testimony, there was so much shame, so much guilt. There was so much I should have known better. A lot of those kind of guilty phrases, right? But then as I looked back, the Lord was in every single detail of my story. And the best part is that He met me exactly where I was at. There is so much freedom in sharing your testimony. Revelation 12:11 says, "We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony." Testimonies hold so much power. My favorite parts are, number one, when God meets us exactly where we're at, and number two, He is in every single detail. So let's get right into it. So for a little bit of context, I was raised in church. I actually was born on a Friday, and so my joke was always I was born on a Friday and in church on that Sunday. My family and we went to church. When I was younger, I did the church camps, I did the VBS. When I was in high school, I did the youth conferences. I was in church on Sunday mornings. I did the Tuesday night prayer nights, the Wednesday morning Bible studies at school, the Wednesday night youth groups. I was filled with the Holy Spirit at the age of 13. My relationship with the Lord probably hit its peak at about 2014, 2015. When I was 16, I had a situation that happened with my family that unfortunately altered my relationship with the Lord. I was very angry. I was so confused. I really did not understand what was going on. Why did this happen to me? How could the Lord let this happen? There was so much anger and bitterness toward the situation. Simultaneously, as this is all happening, I was diagnosed with hypothyroid, which, if you're familiar, my hair was falling out in chunks. I had no energy. I was falling asleep at the drop of a hat. What's actually crazy is that up until about a month ago, I found out that I actually have Hashimoto's, which I have my own theories on this. As far as the timing of everything, the stress and the grief that I was going through, and then for all of this to get flared up simultaneously, which yes, we will be talking about all of this on my naturopathic doctor holistic health journey episode, which I'm so excited to get into. But basically, to sum it all up, my relationship with the Lord went from thriving for so many years to surviving. And that survival mode mindset quickly spiderwebbed into every single area of my life. Fast forward to 2017, it was my senior year of high school. That's when I started drinking and partying and all that kind of stuff. That atmosphere was so different than what I had been around my whole life, so it was something that I wanted to experience. After high school, I decided to move to Florida. So my grandparents moved down to Florida when I was really young, and so we were down there all the time. We were there for spring break, summer break, fall break. Anytime we could get a long weekend, we were down there. So Florida really felt like a home away from home for me. I had lived in Indiana my whole life, and to be honest with you, I didn't know much except the 30-minute radius that I lived around. So when the opportunity came about to move down to Florida, I jumped on it so fast. I moved in with my grandparents after I graduated high school in July of 2017, and I started at a community college in the fall. Once college really started and I started making friends, I started to go to the college parties, I started to socialize, go to these events. Of course, we lived right on the beach, so there was beach parties and things like that. But once I made friends, I purposefully would spend the night on Saturday nights at their house so that I would not have to get up and go to church on Sundays. It got to the point where I despised church. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was going to live this life my way. I was not under my mom's roof anymore, so I was not going to live by her rules. So sidebar, and yes, this is relevant and it will all tie together, I promise, but 2017, 2018 was really the rise of the Instagram influencer, the rise of the Instagram model, I should say. So as a young college student, I'm seeing all these girls on social media make so much money. They're taking pictures and getting PR and getting lots of followers and making lots of money. And of course, I wanted to start on that path too. But in reality, all I wanted to do was be creative and get paid for it. Since I lived in a beautiful area, I picked up my camera and decided to just go take pictures. This is where my love of photography and content creation really start to kick in. At the time, I was working at a real estate company and I was actually doing their listing photos. I was an admin assistant to the real estate agents. But at the same time, I wanted to work for myself, as well as I'm seeing all my friends have, say, server, bartender jobs, things that were not as serious as, for instance, Florida luxury real estate at the age of 18, 19. So I honestly decided to take a step back from the real estate company. So lucky for me, during this time, the broker who owned the real estate company that I worked for actually had a restaurant as well. So I quickly just transferred over there. I was a manager, but to be honest with you, I was an overpaid host. That's at least what it felt like. So my thought process during this was I would be working more night shift versus during the day. So I could work on school, I could work on the different creative projects that I was starting to come up with, and then go to work at night. But that quickly was not the case because if you know anything about the restaurant industry, I went in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Then I would get off about 12:30, 1 o'clock. Then if I went and hung out with my coworkers after work or anything like that, then I was not going to bed until probably 3 in the morning. Then wake up, it's say noon, 12:30, and then I only have a couple hours before I have to get back to work. So this schedule was not very sustainable for a college student. And then on top of everything, on my very little time that I had working, I decided it would be a good idea to join a network marketing company. And yes, that was sarcastic. I did not have time for anything else, but yet I still thought that joining a network marketing company would be a good idea. And I had joined other network marketing companies in the past, but this one actually stuck. I still had this very real goal of being able to work for myself and be my own boss. And so, yes, I would get in trouble for this. I would bring a notebook to the host stand while I was not busy and work with my phone and my notebook. But like I was saying, it was a lot of long nights. It was a lot on my plate. And so naturally, I dropped out of college. And I laugh about that now because I was so ambitious. I thought that that was the right move, which in hindsight, I always knew I could go back to school, but that just was not my priority at the time. Have I gone back since? No. And I guess the only thing that really rationalized my decision was that everything that I actually wanted to do, I didn't need a degree for. I'm more of a hands-on learner anyway, and so I've learned more in these last couple years, hands-on in the field, being creative, doing the photography, creating the content, learning all these things that I did not learn in a classroom. Now, I'm not for school, against school. Everybody's situation is going to be different, but this is just my story. After I made the decision to drop out of school, this is oddly where hustle culture decides to creep into my life. At first, it was so slow creeping into my life, and then it was all at once. Eventually, I left the restaurant in 2019. I actually ended up working for my friend's dad's company shortly after that. It was a little bit more flexible, and obviously, I actually worked during the day. I quickly realized that the restaurant life and those hours were not for me. I was working so much, but then I also was working so much in my network marketing company, and I actually started to gain some traction. Now, the job that I was driving to, it was like 45, 50 minutes one way. So obviously, I spent a lot of time in the car. During this time is where I would start listening to self-help podcasts, network marketing podcasts, business, manifestation. And this is where new age practices start to come in. And yes, this will be another whole separate episode, but I'm just going to be very blunt and honest here. The self-help industry was my gateway drug into new age practices. The law of attraction, manifestation, the I can create my own life kind of attitude caused more harm than I ever thought was possible, left me more broken than fixed. And I am looking forward to touching on that because I know it is a really hot topic. So I'm really excited to dive into that at a later date. In January of 2020, I actually got a job at Planet Fitness. I left my friend's dad's company and decided to work a lot closer to home. I was broke at this point, and to be honest with you, I wanted a free gym membership and I needed to get in shape. But we all know what happened in 2020. I didn't even get a 60-day review at the job because obviously COVID shut everything down. Once COVID shut the gym down, my life went into an utter spiral. I went full force into my network marketing business, working so many hours of the day. If I was not working, I was drinking, I was smoking, basically anything to kill time. I was eating the worst I had ever eaten, drinking by noon. I was stress eating from building my network marketing business. I was drinking because I was bored. I wasn't working out because I was sitting idle working my business. Little did I know that my adrenals were shot, my cortisol was through the roof. I lost my period for months. I was addicted to stress. And like I said earlier with the self-help thing, the law of attraction, the manifestation, that's again where this plays into a part. I would sit and try to visualize my life. I was so stuck on this mentality of I can build my own life. And if I'm not working my business, then everything's going to crumble. And the worst part was my identity was in being productive. After not having a period for, I'd say 2 months, 3 months, I decided to go to the doctor and get everything checked out, figure out what was going on. And I actually was diagnosed with PCOS and prediabetes. I continued to not have a period actually for 9 months, which is wild. And now that my cycle, and I'm actually going to go into this later in my story, but my cycle is now regular and healthy. And I was literally so uncomfortable during that time. My body was screaming, telling me to stop, telling me to slow down, say, hey, let's actually nourish ourselves. Let's go for a walk. Let's get fresh air. But I was doing the opposite of everything that I needed to be doing for my health. So 2021 was actually one of the worst years of my life. January of 2021, my business came to a screeching halt. The thing I had wrapped my identity in was gone. Everything I had worked for went down the drain. I did not know who I was without my business. So after all that came crumbling down, I decided to work a couple jobs. I worked at a tanning salon. I still had that entrepreneurial bug and I wanted to work for myself. So I actually got my life insurance license in the state of Florida. But honestly, I was not good at the sales calls. I was not good at knowing the material. And so honestly, I just decided to forego that and I went back to the tanning salon. At this point, my now husband and I were living together in an apartment. My bills were through the roof. I was living on credit cards at one point while working my business. So unfortunately, at this point, I was paying the consequences of living on those credit cards. I was making about $2,500 on a good month with overtime, bonus, all these different things at the tanning salon. But unfortunately, my bills were $2,300. That was before gas, groceries, life, anything like that. I was not saving. I was barely making by. I actually had to do Uber Eats, Instacart to make a little bit of extra cash to give me some more leeway room. I felt like the world was on my shoulders. I had nowhere to turn. The walls were caving in on me and I had nowhere to go. During all of this, the Lord kept pursuing me. He kept chasing after me, but my stubbornness kept pushing him away. At this point, I did decide to go back to church. I wasn't completely against it. However, that still meant I was in the bars on Saturday night and going to church on Sunday. I'd listen to my favorite astrologer on Instagram on Sunday afternoon after church. I would listen to my favorite manifestation podcast on Monday morning after just being in church on Sunday morning. I was the definition of lukewarm. I was so half in, half out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I still wanted to try to do things my way. And I feel like this is exactly where New Age gets people. The manifestation, the tarot cards, the astrology, all of this stuff. I feel like for me at least, my thought process was that I could wait on the Lord. I could pray and listen for his voice when asking for direction of my life, because at this point I was clueless. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was so lost. I was so confused. Or instead of being patient and waiting on the Lord, I could go and get my tarot cards pulled. I could go and get my birth chart read. I could go and look at my horoscope. I could look to that for guidance because that's immediate versus waiting on the Lord is where people get impatient and don't want to wait. And this is to not make anybody feel guilty. It is not to condemn anybody. This is out of love. And this is my testimony. This is my journey. And like I said, I will be doing a full New Age podcast coming soon. But the beauty of the Lord is that He still chased after me. One day, as I was driving to work to the tanning salon, I got a notification saying, hey, your bill's due. And then I looked at my bank account. I quickly realized I didn't even have enough money for the minimum payment. Mind you, because my credit cards were so maxed out, my minimum payments were 150 plus, sometimes $200. And so I was about $60 short of the minimum payment. At this specific tanning salon that I worked at, we only had one person on staff, meaning I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get everybody in tanning booths, trying to sell, trying to do all the things, right? And so after a very busy lunch rush, I was starting to just catch my breath and I needed to go clean up beds. As I start to clean the first couple of rooms that were closest to the front, I hear the phone ring. I go and I pick it up. It was a lady who had just been there. She wasn't a member, but she had bought a couple sessions. And so she called and she asked, she said, hey, I think I left my necklace there. Can you go back? I was in the back stand-up tanning booth. Can you go and check and see if it's there? She goes, I'm right down the road. I will turn around right now. So obviously put her on hold, go back to the tanning booth. Sure enough, the necklace is hanging right there. Grab the necklace, go back up to the front, pick up the phone, and I say, hey, yeah, it's right here. I have it. Come whenever you can. She's like, I'm right down the road. I'll be right there. Mind you, this used to happen all the time with kits, phones, rings, wallets. I even had this one lady forget her bra all the time. So mind you, this was something that was so very normal. But this lady, she proceeded to come into the salon and I handed her the necklace and she handed me a wad of cash. And she probably thought I saw a ghost or something because my face, this had never happened before. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't have to do that. No worries. Like, not that big of a deal. She goes, I would have given you more if I had it. And she handed me all the cash that was in her wallet. As soon as she leaves, I run back to the back. I start counting the cash. Sure enough, it was $87. I start bawling my eyes out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. Immediately, I knew it was the Lord and I had full body chills. I knew it was the Lord looking out for me. I even voice memoed my friend who's a Christian and I told her what happened. She had been praying for me because she knew I was going through it. And I told her what happened. I'm jumping up and down. In the same breath of me thanking the Lord, I tell myself I manifested that money. And to this day, that still breaks my heart. I've asked the Lord for forgiveness. I know He forgives me, and I know there's no shame in that, but it still breaks my heart now, knowing that I did not give Him the glory fully. In April of 2022, my now husband and I got engaged. I finally saw a glimmer of hope out of the pit that I was in. I went into full wedding planning mode. We decided to have a quick engagement. We actually got engaged in April and married in October. I had the job of planning the wedding. He helped me make some decisions, but the logistics of everything, I took over. I was so excited to start wedding planning, and to be honest with you, I needed the dopamine of planning everything. A week before our wedding, Hurricane Ian was a Category 4, and it was supposed to be a direct hit to Tampa Bay. This was one of the first times that Tampa was going to get a direct hit of a pretty nasty hurricane. Our apartment at the time, I compared to a pile of toothpicks or a pile of cards. There was no way that this was going to sustain a Category 4 storm, let alone the storm surge that they were predicting. We were on the 3rd floor and we would have absolutely had storm surge in our living room. We didn't want to spend the money on a hotel because we were about to get married the next week. So we decided to pack it up and drive to my mom's in Kentucky. As we are crossing the Tennessee-Kentucky border, I flip open my iPad and turn on Spectrum News. I look over at my husband. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're never going to believe this. The storm actually made a last-minute turn to Fort Myers. But at this point, we were already 70% there to my mom's house. And so we obviously decided to just keep driving. We got there at like 5 in the morning, I think, slept for a little bit, woke up. I think we were there in total, maybe 30 some hours. Later that night, my mom and my sister invited me to their women's small group. I was so reluctant to go, but at the same time, my people pleasing was flaring up. And so I decided to go to be nice, to spend time with my mom and my sister because I felt like I hadn't seen them in forever. And trust me when I say this was so the Lord ordained. I needed this moment. I promise that the whole reason of this entire trip was for me to get there to that Tuesday night small group. The girls didn't even know me, and they prayed over my future marriage. They prayed over our safe travels. It was such an appointed time with the Lord that I had, and it planted a seed that would then carry over back in Florida. We got married in October of 2023, and it was so beautiful. It was my perfect dream beach wedding. Once we got back, I actually went straight back to work. I changed jobs from the tanning salon to a roofing company. And so, obviously, with a hurricane that just happened, there's a lot of people that need new roofs. I worked from home a lot. So, if I was not working my roofing company job, I was working on other creative projects that I started to have ideas for during this time. So, shortly after the hurricane, to be honest with you, the money started dwindling. It wasn't something that was sustainable. And that again put a lot of pressure on myself because I had to quickly figure something out. It's very hard to be creative if you are strapped for money. So I'm going to put a little bit of a warning on this before I say it. My mental health had hit an all-time low at this point. The mentality of I have to fix this and I can't rely on anybody else but myself really played a part in this. My birthday is in late November. I had just turned 24. I looked around and I quickly realized that my life was exactly the same as what it was the year before, the year before that, the year before that, and nothing had changed. I was still broke. I was still sick in my body, sick in my mind. I was depressed. I was anxious. I couldn't even get off the couch. I finally broke. I said, God, what is this? This is not a life that is worth living. Is this all that my life is going to be? Because if this is it, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. If this is all my life is going to be, why am I here? This is absolutely miserable and not worth living. I don't want to be here anymore. I truly, genuinely started to think what it would be like if I was not here anymore. Mind you, I had just gotten married. This should be the happiest time of my life, but it was absolutely quite the opposite. I genuinely tried to justify that my new husband was going to be okay, my family was going to be okay, and that life was going to go on without me. But then this single thought that I know was from the Lord saved my life. Since we lived in Florida and all my family lived in Cincinnati, I did not want to have my now husband make the phone call that unfortunately something happened to me, to my family in Cincinnati. That thought gave me the fight that I needed to get out of my dark place. On December 3rd, 2022, I got out of my apartment. I drove to my grandparents' old condo. They, at this point, had moved back to Cincinnati. I parked at their condo and I decided to go for a very long walk. If you're familiar with St. Pete Beach, I'm sure you know of the Don Cesar Hotel. There's that really big bridge right there. My grandparents actually used to live right around that area. My goal was to walk over the really big bridge towards the Don Cesar Hotel and then walk back. But then once I had walked all that and I did get to the Don Cesar, something in me just wanted to keep walking. So if you continue on to the left, you continue on, go down a couple miles, you'll eventually end up at Paso Grill Beach. So since this was something that I really wasn't planning on, I had no sunglasses, I had no water, I had really only my phone, my AirPods, and my keys with me. So I really was not prepared for this long walk. I finally walked to the concession stand, which I think I'll have to look. I want to say it's like a 6-mile round trip walk between my grandparents' condo to the concession stand and then all the way back. Once I got to the concession stand, I went up, I asked for 2 cups of ice water. I sat down at a picnic table, and little did I know that that second cup was for Jesus. I opened up my Bible app for the first time in I can't tell you how long, and I opened up a Bible reading plan on forgiveness. I realized how broken I was for trying to do life on my own. Clearly, trying to do things on my own was not working, and it was only putting me back where I started, and my life felt like a continuous loop that I could not get off of. And then I pulled out my phone in my notes app and I wrote down my surrender letter. And I'm actually going to read the surrender letter. I have it pulled up. It is still in my notes app to this day. I have since transferred it to a journal, but I obviously want to keep the original notes app version. But this is December 3rd of 2022. I titled it, I'm tired of carrying the weight. I'm tired of carrying the weight in more ways than one. I'm tired of carrying my physical weight, the ebbs and flows, the gaining and the losing to gain it all back. I'm tired of carrying the burden of not feeling good enough. I'm tired of carrying the responsibility of people pleasing. I'm tired of feeling unsettled. I'm tired of feeling broken and hiding. I'm tired of belittling myself. I'm tired of holding back my dreams, my vision, and my voice. I'm tired of not being confident. I'm tired of all the reasons I come up in my head that I'm unworthy. I'm tired of not living my life. I'm tired of being depressed. I'm tired of hiding from the world because I'm scared of being hurt. I'm tired of feeling like once things are going good, they'll be ripped out from underneath of me. I'm tired of holding grudges. I'm tired of holding that not healed part of me in my body. I'm just tired. In you, Jesus, I find my rest. I find my rest and I find my peace. For you know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord. Plans to prosper you. Make me whole in ways I am so broken. I am so broken without you, God. In all my life, you have been faithful. There are so many times I look back and you were always there, even when I was running far away from you. God, as I sit on this bench, I give all that I have to you. I give myself to you one day at a time. Every day I ask that you please give me a fresh spirit of grace and a zeal for life. Let me find you in the little things. I give you my heart. Heal me in all the ways to make me whole again. It's been a long time since I felt like myself. I have felt lost for years with my whole world spinning all the time like a carousel that won't stop. Help me learn to trust you and love you more every day. I ask that you would give me the strength to live the life that you have for me. Help me to put one step in front of the other. I was wrecked, to say the least. This is what I mean when I say God meets us exactly where we're at. He knew I would not find him in a church because of how far gone I was. He met me on a park bench and showed me a love that no one could show me. I literally felt a physical weight come off of my shoulders, and I felt the peace of the Holy Spirit. I felt the peace of the Holy Spirit for the first time in such a long time. And I was so wrecked. The people that were next to me were probably like, oh my gosh, is she okay? Because I just was sobbing from my toes. And this is what I mean when the Lord has your yes. Like, my life did not immediately start to look perfect. And I started to walk out this perfect Christian life. But it was like I put in that surrender letter, it was one day at a time. That was in December of 2022. In January of 2023, I started working with a therapist. My husband and I moved out of our apartment and actually started to live with family, which that was a godsend because I was able to get out of debt through living with them of 9 months. I paid off almost $20,000 worth of debt. Eventually, my drinking slowed down from what was once every day, if not every day, every other day. Slowed down from that to socially, then turned into one on the weekend, then turned into nothing at all. The last time I vividly remember drinking to get drunk was in May because I was hanging out with my friends. But then the Lord just started doing a quick work in me, and I really stopped drinking completely, like October, November timeframe. I think the last time I actually drank was my birthday in 2023. So I had a glass of wine for my birthday, and that was the last time I've ever touched alcohol. We started living with my family simply because we wanted to save up and buy a house down there. And we actually were under contract in a house for a house in Florida on August 22nd, so almost a year coming up. The house actually came back and failed inspection. We pulled out of the offer, and then the idea was thrown out by my husband to move to Cincinnati. I went to bed kicking and screaming. I did not want to leave, but then I woke up the next morning and I completely agreed. I said, yeah, let's do it. In the middle of September of 2023, we actually were up here looking at apartments and places to live and really what this would look like as far as moving up here. And then the first week of October, we were in Cincinnati. And it has just been a full circle moment as to the goodness of the Lord and how quickly He has turned not just my life around, but also my husband's as well. So fast forward to today, I am completely sober. I'm running my social media business for His glory. That same group of girls that prayed over me back in 2022 during the hurricane, because I was sick and I actually only had my period twice in 2023. They prayed over me in December of 2023. Within 3 days, I got my cycle, and my cycle has been regular all of 2024. I literally compare it to Mario Kart in driving on the little rainbow patches of the acceleration strips and how you go from 0 to 60 really, really fast. And I don't know who this is for, but God's time is not linear. It literally is a circle. And so if you feel like you've messed up, He can go into your future and your past and fix your present all in the same time. Bring you another chance all in one word. I really hope this encouraged you today. God is so good, and I would love to hear your testimony. I'm actually going to put the email address in the show notes of the podcast in the YouTube description. If you would like to submit your testimony, I would absolutely love to hear it. If this blessed you today, please send this to another Proverbs 31 creative. And if you could please rate and review the show, that would be greatly appreciated. It helps with the algorithm to push the show and get it out to more women just like you. I'll be praying for you this week. The best is yet to come. Have a great rest of your week.